On this episode of Just Informed Talk, we're going to look at why the left is so desperate to get President Trump out of office. We're going to look at a few stories from the news that'll give you a broader context as to why they will not give up this incredible coup attempt to try to remove a duly elected president. Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. I want to begin by saying thank you to everybody who's hit that subscribe button. If you haven't, please come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications so you get notified when these videos get posted, and hit the thumbs up button, the like button, if you guys like this content and want to see more. So today's episode, we're obviously looking here at the Q board at Q post 3330. That was the latest Q post, which we've covered previously. And we're going to talk about a lot of different stuff today that's going on in the news. And it all will paint a picture, I guarantee that, about what's actually happening and why they will not relent in their baseless witch hunt against the president of the United States. But before we get into that, I always encourage everybody to come back here to the landing page, watch these last few videos if you guys want to get caught up on the latest information and Q posts and all that stuff. And if you're scratching your head going, what is QAnon? What's this guy talking about? Watch this video, What is QAnon, the Great Awakening? It will give you all that information and a lot more. So today, obviously, this is where the Q post left off, but I want to go back. I want to go back to January. And this is where I'm going to start. I want to start by rereading this Q post to you guys. And then we're going to talk about stories in the news today that are just basically showing why the left won't relent in this witch hunt of our president, this attempted soft coup, and it's not ended yet. They're still coming after President Trump more and more every day, and there's a good reason for it on their side, I guess, because they're the ones who have been involved with some pretty seedy, nefarious stuff since day one. But let me read this to you. And this is from January 6, 2019. This was a Q post that we got. It says, when will the public discover that Ted Cruz was also illegally surveilled pre-POTUS Republican nomination? CIA, illegal surveillance of members of Congress. CIA, illegal surveillance members of the press. CIA, illegal surveillance of Senate Intel Committee. Then it gives these two articles which actually kind of basically verify the fact that it's publicly widely reported that the clowns were basically illegally surveilling the members of Congress, members of the press, and the intelligence committees or committee. So it says, who ordered the surveillance? What justification was provided to authorize surveillance of elected officials? Surveillance falls under scope of FISA warrant or internal to department or outsourced to Five Eye. Reality check, friend or foe, we all spy on each other. Should we be spying on ourselves? Should we be tasking others to spy on ourselves in order to avoid U.S. law? Was Five Eyes established and designed by the intel community as a back-channel surveillance apparatus to avoid domestic laws, triggers, and congressional Senate oversight? What key logs exist to monitor Five Eyes intel collection? What ability do former government officials have regarding ability to access classified level 5i offshore data? How did HRC gain access to the highest classified special access programs, closed system access, and able to transfer to remote home server? Question above should scare every single American. How did China locate primary clown assets within China? 187. Money buys power, no punishment. Brennan by Hussein administration regarding surveillance of Senate, etc. Logical thinking, why? And then it gives this McClatchy DC article, which talks about the fact that the Justice Department didn't want to pursue allegations against the clowns who were surveilling the Senate Intel Committee. I mean, crazy. It says Justice Department declines to pursue. Fake news media limits exposure to public. When did @Snowden breach NSA and publicly release cripple intel gathering ability? NSA targeted. Where did Snowden work prior to NSA contractor? Except what senior level government clown official recruited @Snowden for NSA contractor off target position? So post public release classified NSA Pro Uranium One. Where is Snowden today? What country was involved in Uranium One? If real target country was Venezuela or Ecuador, why didn't @Snowden take a direct flight from Hong Kong to those locations? How many direct flights run daily from Hong Kong to Venezuela and Ecuador? If @Snowden was clown NSA, would he not understand simple logic? Going public prior to end destination safety would limit active passport travel ability due to block and deregulation. Why wouldn't Snowden publicly release info after he already was safely at final destination? Why then would Snowden route through Russia? Why was Russia final destination? Was Russia true destination? Could Snowden be seen releasing classified programs, intel from inside of Russia? What role did Brennan play in the Snowden leaks regarding NSA? What was Brennan's background regarding Saudi Arabia? Does the CIA hold blackmail on political leaders? Do the clowns protect those who protect them? Why are ex-clown contractors running for office? How many ex-clown contractors are currently in office? Hello, Adam Schiff. Once an agent, always an Agent Q. Now, why did I read this to you? Some old Q post just completely randomly out of context. Well, because there's more context. This is actually quite in context to what we're going to be talking about here today. But why the machine in Washington, D.C. won't relent in pursuing the impeachment of President Trump, or the removal by any means necessary, it would seem, of him from office. This explains everything. I thought this Q post was the one that kind of tells us the whole story. First of all, in the beginning here, it's telling us that President Trump wasn't the only one who was being spied on. Apparently, there was a surveillance system that was used by people in the Obama administration and his intelligence officials called the Hammer. Now, according to certain individuals, this may have been basically what the Hammer is. For those of you who don't know, is it's basically like Google for everything on the internet, except it's not like just websites. When you use the search engine to query somebody, you're going to get everything. You're going to get their emails. You're going to get their text messages, their phone calls. You're going to get where they were, their geolocation tracking data. You're going to get pretty much any and everything you would need to either blackmail somebody or to just take and examine their entire life with a magnifying glass, and even the parts that are supposedly private. Now, this system was apparently set up and being run out of the White House Communications Agency's offices in the White House itself, according to some sources, and it was at least being utilized directly by Obama administration officials to illegally spy on U.S. citizens that had that there was no reasonable excuse for spying on these individuals other than for their own political partisan advantage. That's what the Obama administration was doing near the end of his term, and probably all throughout his entire administration's terms, both terms. They were using this kind of illegal surveillance system to go after their political enemies. And when this is put into context of what Q's saying here, the clowns were surveilling everybody in Congress from day one and people in the press. And like it says down here, it talks about how, do they have blackmail on political leaders? Do they protect those who protect them? And this references directly Adam Schiff. Now, Adam Schiff is the guy who is spending his entire life and basically, in my opinion, throwing his career down the toilet in pushing this crazy investigation into President Trump's finances, trying to get his kids' finances, trying to subpoena the banks he uses to get the information about his personal finances, which is absurd because there's no predicate for it. The only predicate for it is this crazy, phony Russia collusion investigation that was put on by a bunch of dirty, dirty cops like Comey and like Brennan and the rest of them. So this is where we're at right now. And it talks about Snowden. And we've talked about Snowden a lot. Now, Snowden was the guy who was apparently working for the clowns. He was a product of the farm, which is basically a place where they train new clowns, if you will. You guys know what clowns are. And he was sent to the NSA to cripple the NSA. I mean, and why would you do that? Because of the Uranium One scandal. Look, and it says here it says, when did Snowden breach NSA and publicly release cripple intel gathering ability? Why were they targeted? Because the people running our government were as corrupt as it gets. And I don't mean just like they were spying on President Trump. I mean, they were selling 20% of our uranium to the Russians and taking $140 million into their private foundations as a payoff. And we can look at all this and now in retrospect, in hindsight, and say, wow, this is really the biggest scandal of our entire generation. But the media is just as complicit. Look at what it says here. Do the clowns have dirt on people in the media? Because if they're holding blackmail on political leaders, why wouldn't they do it to the media as well? And plus, the media knows the game. They just play along and they think their sources are great. Like Brennan, he goes there and Schiff and all these guys. Look, this is what President Trump said about Adam Schiff. This is the President of the United States of America. I trust the President of the United States of America. If that makes me some, fascist, Nazi, white supremacist for supporting the President of this country, I don't even know what to say to that kind of nonsense. But look, he says right here, Congressman Adam Schiff, who spent 2 years knowingly and unlawfully lying and leaking, should be forced to resign from Congress. This is the President of the United States telling us directly, in no uncertain terms, that a sitting congressman who happens to be the head of the Intelligence Committee, which is unbelievable in and of itself, spent 2 years knowingly and unlawfully lying and leaking. And all he asked for is a resignation. I want an indictment. I want a trial. I want these people to be brought to justice. If this stuff's true, they should be doing a heck of a lot more than resigning. They should be, under investigation right now. But it's all political, and it's all about who's protecting who. These are bought and paid for people. Q has told us in the past here. It's possible that there is blackmail involved. It's possible that they're all in it together. It's possible that they are contractors who were former contractors and now are running our Congress. And it's like I've talked about this before. How do they get you involved in this? It's just like any other gang. It's like in a gang, they'll take you to a liquor store and they'll say, go and rob the liquor store, right? And then you go and do it. And when you come out, they'll take the whatever you have, the gun or whatever, and they'll say, all right, now you're one of us and we have this dirt on you. And if you ever do anything, to rat on us, we'll turn the dirt over to the cops and you're going to go to jail. And sometimes it's much worse than what I just described. It's a much worse criminal act that they're asked to do. Now, this one post in and of itself kind of explains exactly where we're at. These individuals in our government were not only involved in some of the highest kind of treachery you could imagine, but they're being completely covered for by the mainstream media. Nobody's opening, you don't see Fox, or barely Fox, but you don't see CNN, you don't see ABC, you don't see CBS, you don't see MSNBC, you don't see any of these people, NBC, reporting on these stories. Are we going to ever figure out why, like Q says here, why Hillary Clinton was allowed to have classified special access program information on her personal private servers that we know were hacked by foreign countries? Are we going to investigate why her foundation just magically got $140 million and all of a sudden when she didn't win the presidency in 2016, there's no money left and nobody's donating to her? You could say, oh, well, she's not president. But look, we have enough information. I think President Trump has enough information to continue to go and actually have indictments. But it's all about national security and timing. And we had to clean out the FBI. We had to clean out the DOJ. And it's just absolutely absurd to where we've come. Okay. And just to give you an idea of what we're kind of talking about here. Look, you have Adam Schiff now going after Erik Prince for lying to Congress. Oh, guess how many other people have done that? Here's the thing. If you're gonna go after people who lie to Congress, what about Clapper? Are we gonna make a criminal referral for James Clapper, the former head of the DNI, who lied to Congress to their face? We have it on tape saying that the U.S. doesn't surveil anybody. Are we gonna do that? Because if you want to go after Erik Prince, you might as well go after Clapper and the rest of them too. Comey, are we gonna go after Comey for lying to Congress? I hope so. But it just goes to something even bigger. right? When you see these stories coming out about Adam Schiff and the intel agencies went dark on Trump-Russia investigation after Comey was fired. This is an actual story that came out of the Washington Examiner, where Adam Schiff is complaining about how after James Comey was fired, the Trump-Russia investigation stopped giving him information to leak to the public. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. He talks here, he says here, quote, "We were getting periodic counterintelligence briefings up until the point where James Comey was fired," Schiff, Democrat from California, said on MSNBC. "At that point, the most significant counterintelligence investigation in recent history went into a black hole, and the Justice Department and the intelligence community stopped fulfilling their statutory obligation to keep us fully informed of any significant counterintelligence activity." So what he's saying here is he's complaining about the fact that he wasn't being fed information behind the scenes to continue his little fever dream about how President Trump's a Russian spy. Because I would imagine they probably realized pretty quickly, every time we go brief these people on these counterintelligence briefings, it just ends up on the headlines, the Chiron headlines at CNN or MSNBC. And they're just completely twisting it and spinning it and taking it out of context to go after the president. And they've been doing this since day one. So that, I just think it's laughable. You know, these people who are in our government, I'm starting to get to the point now where as a patriot, you know, a God-fearing man, first of all, a patriot who loves this country, and a man who has a family that I want to protect and I love, how are these people allowed to continue to work in government? If the president of the United States says that you broke the law and that you're a lying leaker and that and obviously you should be resigned, but you should be investigated, indicted, why are you still in Congress? And how is this possible? And how is he allowed to continue to weaponize his position as the chair of the House Oversight Committee and go after House Intelligence Committee and go after President Trump's personal financials with no predicate for it other than, oh, John Brennan and James Clapper said he's a Russian spy? It's laughable. It's absurd. It's asinine. It's crazy. And here's another proof of Q. Of course. You guys want more? Here's more. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein has submitted his resignation, so he will be resigning. And what day will that be? It is effective May 11th. Very interesting. Anon put together an interesting graphic from November 5th where we had this Q post talking about declassification was coming and talked about a George Papadopoulos tweet and how the inverse is the May 11th of the date that this post was given. But in all honesty, look, there was so many other indications that Rod Rosenstein was going to be resigning, especially given what Q's been telling us for quite some time now. I just thought that was interesting and another Q proof that we can look at and say, hey, you know, this is all real. And now here's another one. You have Sally Yates, one of the main figures in this coup plot against President Trump and then this whole Russia collusion nonsense, recently now going on to meet the press and basically saying that President Trump's not loyal to the U.S. No, he's not loyal to you criminals. I mean, for me, it's kind of like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I feel like I'm in this like bizarro world. The criminals are getting on TV and saying President Trump's unloyal, not loyal to the U.S. and da-da-da-da, and he's a Russian agent. And you're like, dude, you and your administration were the ones that sold uranium to the Russians, 20% of our stockpile. And then you enriched yourselves. You used the intelligence agency's most advanced spying apparatuses to illegally spy on private U.S. citizens for your own political partisan gain. And think about it this way. What about the whole Trump-Russia or the whole Russia-Mueller special counsel that was, you predicated an entire special counsel investigation off of unverified opposition research that was manufactured by your own party. It was all fake and phony and weaponized to go after the president. And this is what we're coming into. Now you have people saying, oh, 2020, it's just going to keep getting worse up in the lead up to the election. I think that if the only way to really solve this at this point is to start arresting these people. We cannot have a country if you just allow criminals to go on national television and call you basically a traitor when we have enough evidence to see quite clearly that these individuals were involved in some of the most nefarious things you could imagine. And if you want to talk about unpatriotic, I think it's kind of unpatriotic when you try to destroy our country, our democratic system of elections, and you try to take what we have and just malign it and to weaponize your positions of power against private U.S. citizens to affect your own personal political gains. Let's listen to what Sally Yates has to say, because this is great stuff right here. I hope they use this in the trial.
I mean, when the Russians came knocking at their door, you would expect that a man who likes to make a show of hugging the flag would have done the patriotic thing and would have notified law enforcement.
In fact, his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, said on this program just last week that there's no problem with the president, with the candidate, with the Trump campaign, welcoming support from a foreign adversary such as Russia.
Yeah, that's a shocking statement, and it also just reflects how they have moved the goalpost when the truth comes out. Recall at the beginning, they constantly said we didn't have anything to do with any Russians. And then when the truth comes out and reveals that that's a lie, now we have devolved down to there's nothing wrong with taking help, illegal help from a foreign adversary. Surely that's...
Okay, I had to stop. What illegal help is she referring to? Is she like living in some different world that I don't know about where there's some proof that President Trump did something with the Russians? Okay, he got on a stage and said, yeah, if the Russians have the WikiLeaks emails, whatever. Whoever has them, put them out there. Well, yeah, because the emails uncovered that she's doing some pretty bad criminal things. And I'm just, yeah, let's keep listening, Sally, because you have your own shovel. You're digging your own, you're making your own bed here. You're going to have to lay in it.
That's not where we've come to.
A lot of people think that Robert Mueller whiffed, that he should have pushed the envelope, he should have subpoenaed the president when he did not get a voluntary interview, and forced the president to take the fifth if he wants to.
Well, look, it's easy to sit in our armchairs and say what we would have done in those circumstances. I think what you see is that Robert Mueller did the job he was asked to do, and he called it right down the middle.
Yeah, okay. So you see what we're up against here. These are bold-faced liars who aren't afraid to get on national TV and just espouse their lies to the public and try to propagandize and manipulate what's dwindling numbers they have of people who are actually still paying attention to what they have to say and haven't seen through this thinly veiled false guise that they put on to pretend that they are these patriotic, they love their country and they're doing what's right for their country. No. We see right through this garbage. And you don't even have to tell, do we even really have to go over this? I was doing this story, 2 years ago? I was covering this story right here on this channel. I was talking about the fact that Joe Biden's kids were getting billions of dollars from foreign entities that he was involved directly with and had these crazy, suspicious dealings with. Hunter Biden, who happens to also have, this is just a factual matter, was dating the wife of his dead brother. You can't make this up. This is talk about the weirdest, creepiest, twisted stuff you ever heard. If your brother passes away and then you're like, yeah, I'm going to start dating, I'm going to get engaged to his wife, his widowed wife. I don't even know what to say. But then you read this story. Steve Hilton was just reporting on this, I guess, through Fox, talking about how Hunter Biden was traveling with Joe Biden over to China, and then all of a sudden he's managing $1 billion securing $1 billion in financing from the Bank of China. You think it's a coincidence, guys? And this is all around the time where there was the contesting of the what is the South China Sea and who controls most of its area, and how China wanted to basically have their 12 dot line or something like that shows that they own the whole China Sea, South China Sea, and that every other claim is invalid. Well, Vice President Biden's taking his son on Air Force Two over to China and all of a sudden walking away with $1 billion in financing from the Bank of China. You can't make this stuff up. And then to wrap it up, the Obamas. These people who I cannot even stand to look at now, who have gone from basically doing what they were doing in the White House, which in my opinion, a lot of it was very, very corrupt, to now they're just, giving jobs over at Netflix and putting together a bunch of shows to indoctrinate your kids. And if you don't believe me, here's one. It's a doozy. They have a half-hour program that they're putting together for preschoolers titled "Listen to Your Vegetables and Eat Your Parents." Do you see the sick, twisted people that we're dealing with here? They're trying to get preschoolers. And if you don't think there's some hidden messaging and subliminal messaging that's all going to be wrapped into these stupid liberal shows, one of the people who ruined the way kids eat in this country was Michelle Obama, with her crazy programs for school lunches that ended up, just terrible consequences. And I'm not an expert when it comes to the health stuff, but I do know people very close to me who are, and we've talked about that ad nauseum about how that whole lunch program that was put together by Michelle Obama was terrible. Not to mention promoting things like the food pyramid, which obviously do not promote healthy diets. So, look, just look at the title. Listen to your vegetables and eat your parents. I know you're going to say, oh, it's a kid's show. That's funny. Kids are going to laugh. Ha, ha, ha. Well, yeah, it's funny until you start thinking about it. Why are you telling preschoolers to eat their parents? It's just like what the Maoists did when you had the Great Leap Forward and you had Mao take over and you had the youth brigades roaming the streets, basically going and searching out anybody who has a dissenting opinion and beating them or putting them in jail or murdering them. They start with an entire generation. That's why they've made Lucifer seem cool on television, and they've made children programming that's just disgusting, in my opinion, that is indoctrinating children. There's just so much more, but that's pretty much where I want to leave it tonight, because, look, and here's the best one, actually. There's one more story I'm going to talk about. The Clinton fundraiser, a ticket seller who's been arrested on charges of distributing child porn. Now, this came out a few days ago. This guy's name is Harold H.L. Moody. He was arrested back in November 2018 for basically distributing child porn on the internet and smoking methamphetamine in his office. Sounds like a great guy, right? Former government youth program coordinator and Democrat Party official who said he's friends with Hillary and Bill Clinton, and how they inspired him to get into politics. Yeah, I'm sure they did. Looking at how you turned out, these sick people who do this stuff. And you can read this story. I'll leave links to all these stories down there if you want to read through them. But it's sick. It's crazy. But it's not even remotely covered in the news because, like I said at the beginning, this is all part of a larger thing that they have going on. It's all they're covering for each other. And it's just sick. Our country is literally going to end up like Venezuela if we don't stop this now. If we don't start prosecuting these people, indicting them, picking them up, putting them on trial for what they did. That's just my humble opinion. So I'm going to leave it there. I want to say thank you guys for watching. A few ways you can help the channel. Obviously, come here, click the big red subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and hit that like button if you guys like this content and want to see more. Watch these videos, share them on your social media. Leave your thoughts, theories, and insights down in the comments. I want to hear what you guys have to think. And don't forget to help out a couple other ways. You can come find me over here on Twitter at JustInformYou. You can get all my funny, cool, tweets and interesting, thought-provoking stuff. You can go check all of that out. Also, don't forget to check out justinformednews.com, the official website for Just Informed Talk. It's a great tool. It's got QAnon stuff where you go to get the Q stuff, different links, different news websites, links to different breaking news, and of course, you have all of the videos here from the YouTube channel. You can go check that out as well. You can come support me over here on Patreon, patreon.com. It's a crowdfunding website. You can set it as a monthly donation and help create content here on the channel. It really is a big deal. So I depend on you guys, and I'm thankful for your help and support here. Link will be in the description, as well as a link here to the GoFundMe page I have set up, which is basically if you want to make a one-time donation or anonymous donation, you can come do it here, and that helps out the channel majorly, big time. So I really appreciate that. And before we go, we're going to do a segment we do at the end of each one of these episodes, which is called God's Grace is Greater. It's a segment where we talk about God's grace. Now, it is truly greater. For today's particular segment, I want to use a piece of scripture out of Psalm 41, verses 10 through 12. And this talks about victory in spite of betrayal. And I thought this was really appropriate, because we will prevail despite the fact that we were betrayed by those that we trusted, the highest levels of our government. The people who we thought were out working for our best interests were in fact enriching themselves and acting in the most corrupt and malicious ways you could imagine, and being involved in some of the most sick and depraved things you could imagine. I mean, I can't even make this stuff up. But with that being said, we look at God. We look to God in these times for our motivation and for what we should do. And it says, "But you, Lord, be gracious to me and raise me up. Then I will repay them. By this I know that you delight in me. My enemy does not shout in triumph over me. You supported me because of my integrity and set me in your presence forever." God will reward those who are righteous. Those of us who stand up, as it says there, with integrity against this evil that has overtaken our country, and in many ways has overtaken our society in the way that we think and the way that we act, we will overcome and prevail against that. There will be victory in spite of this betrayal, because we have something that they will never have, and we have the Lord our God on our side. And that's the message I want to leave you guys with, because that's the message that we need to spread out in the world. And that's the message we need to use for motivation when we're asking ourselves, how do we stand up against such great evil? The first thing you do is put your full faith in God. And as it says in Ephesians, you put on the armor of God, and you let that lead your way. And that's where I'm going to leave it. I want to say thank you guys for watching this episode. As I always say, now's a great time to do it. Come here, click the big red subscribe button. Also, hit the like button if you guys like this content and want to see more. That's going to be it from me. I want to say thank you for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.